Hey everyone, and welcome back. This is Tailboard Talk number 8, and today we're going to be talking about making behavior changes based on our personal values. My name is Alex Capieghi, and I'm a behavioral health consultant from the Department of Family Medicine at East Carolina University, and I'm excited to be sharing this topic with you all today. So on today's agenda, we'll be looking at the fundamentals of behavior change, what that looks like and why it can be important. We'll also talk about values and what they are and how they relate to making behavior changes. We'll review the benefits of values consistent living. We'll also discuss the behavioral activation approach to therapy and talk about how that can improve our well-being. We'll look at a case example that should sound somewhat similar to your experiences at GFR, and we'll think about personal application, how you can maybe have a few takeaways from this presentation to be including in your own life. So let's start off with the fundamentals of behavior change. And as you can see here in this diagram, we often talk about mental health as an interaction between our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. And so to change or make some improvements to mental health, sometimes we just focus on behaviors specifically and think about ways that if we were to make changes to certain behaviors, that might improve our emotions and thoughts, kind of feed into overall well-being. So that's kind of the overall framework where I'll be approaching today's talk from. So if we're going to be thinking about making changes to behavior, it's also really important to consider values. And these should really guide the behavior changes that we're making. And so values are simply the things that we find most important in life. It's these kind of overall concepts like creativity, service, leadership, family, adventure, community. Basically these different ideas about what our behaviors are serving the function of. Do the things that we're engaging in reflect our kind of most core values, or maybe does our behavior in the current moment really reflect things that aren't as important to us? So this is an important part of looking at behavior change. And this concept of values consistent living really stems from the idea that we are the most fulfilled, or we're the happiest and the healthiest when we're living in a way that's consistent with our values. And so the goal is to arrange our lifestyle in a way that prioritizes staying actively engaged in the things that are most important to us. And in the diagram here, you'll see kind of a list of values on the left-hand side and some associated activities. And so really, the goal here, and what I would invite you to start thinking about, is what are your values and what are some examples of activities that could spring from that? That would kind of help scratch the itch of that value that you might hold. And so in the first example, for instance, health, it's a really important value for some people. So an activity might look like going for a walk after work with family. Second value of connection could look like inviting friends over to watch the game, watching a sporting event or maybe a movie or television show. And also the value of achievement could look like signing up for a college course, or maybe inviting in a change in your life that could kind of get at this underlying value of achievement to help you fulfill that kind of desire. So these are just some examples of how this could possibly look in your own lives. As I mentioned earlier, behavioral activation is actually a type of therapy. It's an approach that's commonly used to specifically target behavior change to improve certain symptoms of things like depression and anxiety, other common mental health concerns. There's some evidence that actually shows that behavioral activation as an approach to therapy is just as effective as using antidepressant medications and can be even more effective than cognitive therapy, which is another common approach. And it really emphasizes the importance of increasing values consistent behaviors. So this idea that we're already drawing from, that the more we're living in line with our values, often the more benefits we see from a health and well-being standpoint. And so the premise of behavioral activation is that our mental health and well-being are optimized when we are regularly engaged in activities that we enjoy and are important to us. And accordingly, we feel worse when we fail to make time for these activities. And so one thing that's really important to this approach is starting to monitor how we spend our time. Is our time before work or after work spent doing things that we enjoy? Or is it doing things that maybe we feel like we're forced to do? Or maybe we're just too tired to do the things that we enjoy, so we stop making time for them. And so some of the work here is really taking inventory of how do we spend the hours and minutes of our day, and could we maybe make some changes there to make them more values consistent. So I put together this case example to help us start to envision maybe some of the challenges that we could be currently experiencing, and start to help us engage with this problem-solving process of what would it look like to make some changes. And so I'll go ahead and read this, which says, John has worked as a firefighter for 8 years. He used to love the excitement of his job, but recently has been feeling tired, overwhelmed, and dreads going to work. When he gets home after a long shift, John feels too exhausted to work out at the gym or go to the park to play basketball, which he used to enjoy. He feels like house projects are piling up and there's always something that needs to be fixed. Over the last few months, John has been starting to feel guilty about not spending much time with his 2 young kids. His spouse is becoming concerned that work might be making him too stressed, as he has been more irritable and often snapping at their children when they want to play with him. John keeps telling her that he's fine, but on the inside has been thinking that he can't keep going on like this. And so we'll use this to kind of pull out some of the themes that maybe because of feeling stressed or overwhelmed or tired, or just family obligations and work obligations, that it's very common to kind of drift and gravitate away from the things that we enjoy. And so the goal is to slowly begin to implement some of these things back into our life in a way that can really affect how we feel. So let's unpack this case example a little bit before moving on to really invite you to think about your own lives and how you can apply some of these questions to your own current situations. But based on this description from the previous slide, what might be a few of John's personal values? And I would probably say something like physical fitness, going to the gym and playing basketball, perhaps family, spending time with his young children and wife. We could probably go on and kind of get more creative, but I think those are safe ones. And so what are some examples of values consistent activities that John could try? Perhaps he could look at combining his own desire for exercise and fitness with time spent with his family. Maybe they could go for a family walk or family jogs. Maybe they could spend some time at the park together playing basketball. Maybe John's spouse could bring the kids to the park while he's there playing basketball, and so he can spend time with his own friends while his family is still nearby, kind of still getting the benefits of both of those values. And so there's a lot of ways to get creative here about how we do this. And the last question says, in what ways could John reorganize his daily or weekly schedule to increase time spent on values consistent activities? Perhaps he could talk to friends about having a day, once a week kind of day where they get together and play basketball at the park, or a buddy to go to the gym with and work out for that accountability. Perhaps they could schedule a family trip on the weekends to a local park, or have some kind of activity that helps them have kind of scheduled regular time together as a family, rather than just hoping it works out throughout the week in the midst of everyone's busy schedules, which could be unlikely. So these are just a couple examples from this case that maybe could help you start thinking about making changes in your own life. So as we're coming to a wrap up here, what I would invite you to do is maybe grab a piece of paper, grab your phone and jot down some notes as you think through these last bullet points. And so I'd invite you to take some time to reflect on your own values. What's important to you? What are the things that you find most enjoyable and important in life? And once you have a couple of those ideas, try to identify some activities that stem from your values. What are some things that could get at those underlying beliefs or the things that you really enjoy most, kind of hold most important in life? And then also schedule time for these activities on a regular basis. Maybe it's daily, it could be weekly, monthly, or even yearly. Sometimes scheduling a yearly trip with family can make a really big difference. It's something that everyone can look forward to. So, right, I think there's still some benefits here to a yearly event. So there's a lot of ways that we can get creative here. And finally, consider inviting a family member or friend to do these activities with you. So especially if companionship is a value that you hold, that a lot of these different activities can be strengthened by inviting people in with us to do them together. And so I hope that this list is helpful for you. I hope that these are some things that you can take with you to just improve your own well-being, maybe stress relief, and maybe even help with things like depression or anxiety, if that is something that you're experiencing. So this brings us to the end of Tailboard Talk number 8. As always, I just want to say thank you. We appreciate your participation so much and commitment to serving our community. We're really glad that we can be sharing these videos with you, and we hope that you find them beneficial to your own personal and professional life. Thanks.